Welcome to another day of Bhagavad Gita Sadhana. How are you? I'm here. It's a rare day in some ways. The wind is calm and it's just above freezing. It's going to be interesting because tomorrow, or the weather in the next couple days, will be quite different. And that's what we're looking at in our year-long sadhana is the swings and sways and pendulum of life, and what can we rely on to be constant? It might seem like very little, but there is at least one thing that we can count on, according to the Bhagavad Gita. And I'd like to think other spiritual traditions as well. Before we jump into today, since I forgot my book yesterday, I'd just like to chant for you the lines that we talked about yesterday about receiving the sought and unsought. Being yourself, being who you want to be in this world, whether you got what you wanted or the universe gave you a surprise. So this is from verse 13:10, just the last two lines. Constant even-mindedness in receiving the sought or unsought. Even-mindedness. Sort of the thrust of the Bhagavad Gita. We let our mind get swept away by many things, and perhaps one of the biggest is what we think we know. I was talking about this in the Bhagavad Gita class this past week about how we think we know things, but it's sensory input, it's rumor based on what other people have said or reports from others who claim to have, witnessed something. And some of those can be very valuable sources of information, but sometimes they're not. And all of them are reliant upon the senses, which any of us getting older know that the sense organs do change, yes. And we would say start to fail us. Like my eyesight is not what it used to be. I know people who are, what would be my mother's age, and their senses of smell has started to fail. And, hearing, of course, many of us realize that even the mind itself, we would say, starts to fail. But does it? It's just doing what senses, bodies, and minds do over time. So we could get much more into this, but today's verse, as we continue in chapter 13, is verse 12. And here's another kind of range of opposites that will affect our actions in the world, our perceptions of ourselves, our perceptions of others, and may pull us into acting in ways we don't want to act. When we look back, we go, why did I do that? And this is a continuum of knowledge versus ignorance. And in this verse, even though Sanskrit doesn't have capital letters, it makes it challenging, we can look at this knowledge in English is having a capital letter. What really needs to be known, because with the rate of information that's coming in from sources, from the internet, from just the number of people we might know in community, we think we know a lot. But do we? What we hear is often fallible. So what is this infallible knowledge? This real wisdom that we can count on and trust. So I'll read to you verse 12. If you've got your Song of the Soul books, chapter 13, verse 12, you can chant along with. Of course, you can listen. Eternally knowing the self, seeing what real knowledge means. All this is thus declared knowledge. What is not this is ignorance. According to Krishna, the only thing we really know is ourself. Really. And we can give that a big ass self The true self, we can give it a little less self, because who else knows ourself? Other people may try to tell us they know us better than we do. How does that feel? Have you had that happen? Other people telling you they know you better than you know yourself? So knowing yourself, your true self, is real knowledge, and everything else is ignorance, according to Krishna. And this can be so helpful, because I want you to think of how you act in a situation where you think you know it all. It could be a profession, a hobby. It could be just that you're older than somebody and wiser in the ways of the world. You know it, and they don't. They're ignorant. Or vice versa. When you realize, crap, I don't know anything about that. And you go, oh, I'm ignorant. I'm ignorant of what's really going on. And then what that does to you. I think of that, for example, with yoga. It's like, I know a little bit about yoga. And then I learn some more and I go, nah, I really don't. But the mindset that changes, if I come to this, and goodness knows I do not, and think I know the Bhagavad Gita, and I know it really well, and probably nobody else knows it as well. If I get that, my attitude will be different, and how I convey myself and how I think about myself and how I treat others and how I treat myself is going to be different than when I go, because this is how I go. Man, I've read the Gita again for like the 100th time, and there's still something new I noticed. More of an attitude of humility on my part and curiosity, wanting to know more. So I encourage you today to really notice this. Where do you think you know something, and how do you act? How do you feel about yourself? What is your confidence? And then maybe even put yourself in a situation where you know nothing and you realize it. And then what does that do? If you can't be the same throughout, Krishna says, then you haven't really reached equanimity. And as he mentions in this verse, the only real knowledge that we can get, because we won't get it through the senses, we won't get it through other people, is ourself. All righty. Asana in yoga is a way we learn about our physical self. Now, how's your physical self doing today as we do our balance pose? Switch sides. All right. So now we get to spend 5 minutes in contemplation. You can approach this a couple different ways. You can think about, how do you act when you feel like you know something versus when you realize, I don't know anything. Or you can contemplate yourself, knowing yourself. What will it take to get to know yourself better? Since, as Krishna says, that's the real knowledge that we seek in this world. Whoops, my camera won't give me a 5-minute timer. Let's start our 5 minutes. Go. minutes. We're back. I'm always curious about how this goes for you because knowing you is knowing myself. And today's practice is dedicated to the true self, me, you, everywhere. Thank you for this great opportunity to explore. I hope I get to see you again soon. Until then.